Aloha. I'm
Aloha.
so glad we have
From Houston, Texas.
something to greet each other with now. We're really fumbling, but I think we landed on it.
It makes
It's
me
perfect.
smile. I can't say it without
You
laughing.
kind of can't say it without such a happy feeling, right?
Maybe that's the whole point.
I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Okay.
Oh, gosh. Another podcast episode. It's good to see you.
It's just like this is a job.
You look stunning today.
I'm just loving everything that's happening here. Liking seeing some leg. I haven't seen leg much because the winter, it's been winter here for 2 weeks. So
Right.
it's
our whole 2 weeks. So, which brings me to my win. We just got a really big contract with a repeat client. It's a project in Galveston, and it was sort of cool. So when we were in Santa Fe in October for the Balloon Fest, which, last year that was one of my things on my bucket list, I got a phone call from this client, and it was so good to see her name pop up on my screen. And she said, we're looking at buying this house in Galveston. It'll be a total remodel, but we're not buying it unless you say you'll do it. And I said on the spot, of course I'll do it. And so we went out there last Friday as a team and looked at it and, of course, got the project. And so super, super thankful for that. So we'll be spending a lot of the spring in Galveston.
Oh my gosh. And what's better than, truly the spring in Galveston and
Is
Houston's
lovely.
spring is lovely.
Is lovely.
It is.
So looking forward to that.
Great win.
How about you?
I woke up at 4:30 this morning, which is sort of one of those, it's middle of the night. So you're like, do I go back to bed for a couple more hours?
Yeah.
Or do you just ride this wave?
Yep.
So I decided to ride it.
Yep. I wouldn't expect anything different from you, actually.
But there's a lot where you're like, you've got that soft pillow. Anyway, rode the wave, got up and just got my morning done in a different way. I didn't have coffee first thing. Never done that before. Drink water.
Was that intentional?
Yes, it was. Mel Robbins spoke about it yesterday that you really shouldn't jam straight to the coffee machine. First thing, you should have water for the first, hour to 2 hours before coffee. And that is not going to happen. But I did the water and I gave myself 50, but I'm quite solid that I slept in my chair for those 50 until I got my coffee. It was still nice. And then I was rewarded with the most spectacular sunrise. And it was
I love that.
on every sky I could see. And it's not just, anyway. So that's
and we were texting this morning, and I know you're sort of nursing a leg injury, and it's a big time runner. That's a bummer for you. And you voice texted me, and you were on the, what?
That was the elliptical.
Was the elliptical?
I finally figured out I can do that.
That's so fantastic, and it just made me laugh. And I did get about every fourth word that you said, and so I was able to paste together what it was you were talking about.
Was it my heavy breathing or just bad taping or headphones? Just no
yes,
shit. All of it, all of the above.
All of the above.
Well, you almost got a video, but I put it on selfie mode to show you what I was doing, and all I could see was the two little horns of gray. And then what the reserves of not sleeping till 4, So I quickly turned that camera around and audio.
And did you book a hair appointment?
I did.
from the elliptical?
From the elliptical. God, I love technology.
You did that.
So, yeah.
So exciting to do another podcast. And today we're talking about something that is like the bread and butter of what we do. And I think maybe something that baby designers, I sure didn't take it as seriously as I should have when I was a baby designer. I don't know about you.
Not at all.
But it is the design process.
Which can sound so daunting.
I feel like we should say it like that. The design process.
Doesn't it feel? Because
it does.
Everybody who talks about get a process, write down your process.
Yeah.
Just
for creative, does that make your heart just I can't?
I'm like, where am I writing it? I've got 89 different books all over the house. And what is my process? I don't even know. But you realize you have a process, even if you haven't documented it. You do step one anyway, in its whatever order. But now we are.
And then being able to articulate that, because I think when clients come to us, and we've talked about how daunting the whole process of engaging an interior designer or a new build or remodel can be, that when there is a process and you go, this is our flow chart. this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to do next and next until finally you move into your gorgeous home, it is sort of comforting, right?
It's very comforting. It's that the deliverables,
Right.
which is another word that just sort of is all out in the ethers.
Do you
but
know that every time I put that in my phone or in a document, it like says that it's not spelled right? I'm like, when are we going to add deliverables to the dictionary? Can we do that like today?
Oh, has that?
Yeah.
I just assume I'm always got it wrong. So I'm like,
No. I look at it
spell
several
check.
times. No, it's spelled correctly. But
Okay.
can we like start a campaign to
Yeah, I
add
think,
that word to
yeah.
the dictionary
If
this
the
year?
dictionary people are listening, I think
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, because there's a lot of words that we
Yeah.
make up on
Hit
here.
me up if you need the definition.
But no, I think those processes are, oh my gosh, okay, so important for our clients to understand, because if we don't know how to verbalize it, they don't feel like they're being led in a meaningful way. It just
Right.
feels a little bit like you're throwing spaghetti against the wall.
Exactly. And then the
Um,
question is, why do they need us, right?
yes. So when you have all this going, yeah, it's
Yeah.
huge. But so when did you do the sit down and like really document it, or was it more organic that it
Ugh.
just sort of flowed?
I did. I did the sit down. This was several years ago. We were putting together an internal processes design binder. And this was, advocated. My husband was like, we really need to do this. And I was like, I know it. It's in my brain, which is where a lot of things live
Yeah.
for the creatives, right? But the process of putting pen to paper was super important. And an analogy that I like to use is from the time that a client initially contacts us until the time we write a contract with them, that is like dating. Right? I
Mm.
feel like that first phone call is like you've met them for the first time at a social event, or if you're using an app to meet people, zero judgment there. And then you sort of have your officially dating, and then you get engaged, and then the contract is like, we're getting married.
This is
And
happening.
that's
You're
it.
with me at least 1 year.
That's exactly correct. Oftentimes it's more than that.
Yeah,
And
like you said, you have a repeat client. Like, yeah.
yes,
So it's a long relationship.
it's a long
I
relationship.
like that
And
analogy a lot.
so after somebody contacts you, what's the first thing you do?
It depends. That's a great question. So, we get people who text, right?
Yeah.
They'll say, "Hey, got your name from somebody," which is always the nicest possible thing
Amaze
ever.
balls, right?
But text is always hard too. So, I always lead them kind of to my website, to the intake form,
Mhm.
which it's on its like third or fourth iteration, because you just keep realizing there's different questions we need to be asked.
Yeah.
And so once that comes through, then we reach out for the phone conversation, the phone consult.
Mhm.
And so from that, then you really get a feel based on all the information they already gave. And if we're a good fit for them, and vice versa, because
Mhm.
not everybody fits all the time. Not every project can work.
Totally okay.
But it's okay.
Right.
And it's funny because so often I'll know you'll get the same calls from the same clients, right?
Right.
So they're vetting.
Because we have parallel firms.
Yes.
Right.
And builders refer us both, and it's so nice. We do the same, but for them. But I've said before, oh, and I'm sure you're talking to, and I did.
Yeah.
Talking
Sure, you're
to
talking to
Rainey,
Rainey. I'm sure you're
if you're
talking to
talking to
Casey.
Rainey.
Yeah.
I'd hire her too, and you spanked me for that, but or hand slapped.
Well,
at
I've said the
least.
same thing. If I was going to have my house designed and it wasn't going to be designed in these four walls, that you are who I would hire.
But it's huge because you want to be able to give people, if you can tell that you're not vibing. Right? But
it's like the stepsister trying to force on the shoe in Cinderella, right? And all that's going to lead to is blisters and sore feet, and how fast can I get out of these shoes? And it doesn't mean that we're wrong or the client's wrong.
It's just not the right fit.
It's just not a right fit.
Yeah. And I love that there's an opportunity to share.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can
And we also refer clients to other design friends
all the time.
If it's not for us, if the project isn't in our sort of niche space, our ideal client, it's not our avatar, we will say, that isn't for us. We can't take that on right now, but can I refer you to? And you know what? We're the fourth largest city in the United States. There's enough design business for everyone.
We do not have to, because in the beginning, I took everything.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. What's a project that you took on that you remember that you're like, so was not for me? And
oh my gosh, probably everyone I took the first. Just standing out in front of people's houses in August
Picking exterior paint colors? Stop it.
Can you just, is there any, I'm like, Sherwin-Williams does this for free. I promise. And they're probably better because I'm hot. But no, I've done plenty of those where you're like, it's just, and I will say though, it never gets better than that first. Like you're saying, the dating, right? When you've got the butterflies and things do feel good. If you have even an inkling that this is not the right, do not take that job. Don't think it's going to get better. It's not going to be yours. So pass that little ditty along.
Right. And even if somebody referred you and, you have a mutual friend in common, and that also doesn't mean that it's automatically a natural fit.
Yes.
You've got to go through the vetting process to see if it's something that works for you.
Well, that's such a good point too, because somebody might have referred you and from somebody who used you 10 years ago.
True.
When you were doing paint colors on the outside and it was $35 an hour or whatever. It's a very different process and experience now. And so you really might not fit.
You really might not be for them.
But when you do fit, and so so we have the conversation and then ultimately the site visit or the in-person, if it's a new construction, they come to my office. If it's the remodel, we go to theirs, or if it,
I think for me, it's very much the same. I don't do a Zoom call. I do the phone call, and then the very next thing is I want them to come into the studio for a couple of reasons. I want them to see that we actually do have a location. We're not designing out of our car. Not that anything is wrong with that. It might be too much. It might be bringing an Uzi to a paint gun fight, right? And then they realize themselves that this isn't a good fit, or they can see that we are set up like you are with a library and design tables and presentation stations. And we have designed our firm with all sorts of built-ins and stuff so we can show clients what it is we're talking about.
You did do that.
Well, your studio is stunning as well.
Well, no, but you really created it for the experience for the client. So you can say, this can be done. Anyway.
Yeah, this is an inset cabinet. This is an overlay. This is all of those things. And so that is really, until the end of that meeting, I'm not sure if it's a fit or not, no matter how well that initial phone call goes. And then as a team, we're all at that meeting. And then as a team, we discuss when that client leaves, if we feel like it's a good fit, if we saw anything that we're kind of like we need to circle back with that client and make sure that that's not a red flag.
Okay.
And if we're ready to move forward. So, and then we go to sort of the inspo phase. And I'm not sure, is that where you would go next, or?
So then, from that initial, if we decide, yes, this is a thing, then it's contract time.
Yeah.
I won't even start talking design until that's signed.
That's it. Paid. Until you're married. And money
and
the down payment is made. Yep.
And then
of course.
So, but I have a question about that though for you, not to backtrack a minute, is so in that meeting though, if y'all feel the feels and the client feels it, like, are you already talking what the investment possibilities are? Are you already talking about cost and stuff like that they
have to?
You bring up your fees during that meeting and then they leave and then you discuss.
Yes.
And then do you invite them to the next conversation in the sense of, then do they know they're leaving and they're being kind of thought about and considered, or might be dropped?
Really? So dropped is a big word. And usually I would say 9 times out of 10, if it's not a fit, both sides know that at the end of that meeting, right? But during that meeting, we do talk about budget. If it is a new build, we talk about our price per square foot and what that contract would look like and deliverables would look like in that case. If it's a remodel, then we talk about the next step is to walk the project and get a very concise scope. And then based on the scope, we give them our flat fee for our design work.
Okay.
And then we would go to the remodel bidding stage since we also remodel. But that's a really good question. And so once we know we're headed towards a contract, like in a remodel stage, it takes a long time to sort of get through that very established scope. We will go ahead and ask for inspo photos because for some clients, that's a fun, easy thing. And for others, it's like,
so while you're even waiting for the contract to be done, you're
We've given them
cultivating
guidelines.
that, and you're getting that. Okay. So at that point, you're pretty confident you're going to hand over that contract. They're signing it, and they're
Yeah,
going.
we've given them sort of a range, and
Mhm.
they understand what to expect, and they're investing the time. Because when you do a remodel, how many visits do you do to establish your scope and to really understand the nature of where that project is going?
Honestly, it's typically one can pretty much get a good handle on, just because there's so much back data, which,
Right.
thank goodness, again, with like processes, right? So
Yeah.
I never like tracked time early because it was hourly. And then when I went to fee, it
Mhm.
was lovely because I was like, oh, I don't have to track time, which is completely wrong because you still need to. So
So
you
that you
have data, so
understand
you
if
know how
you're
long this is going to
profitable.
take.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, but based on that, I've been able to kind of just on that first one, and knowing the level that, I guess the inspo's helpful. It makes sense that you would get it on that first, just because you want to know what they
Level of
want to put in.
finishes. Mhm.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
idea. I hadn't thought of that. It's always kind of in that.
You know why? Because we take so many notes from what people wear and what they drive and
And
that
all of
sort
that.
of thing, and it can inform that. So you're probably getting that data without getting that data. You get to where you're really good at that.
You kind of just can read
Yeah.
what, yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, you're right, because it's very rare that you get it real wrong on what you're gonna show
Mhm.
somebody, as far as selections is
Right.
blowing budgets are too low or whatever.
That's exactly correct.
But has there been a time where you really thought it was a match made in heaven, and then they said, "No, ma'am,
Oh, yeah.
you are not my match"?
That just happened last year. We had the most amazing meeting. Loved this client. We still interact on social media. And I know who she hired. She mentioned the designer in the meeting and said her friend used her and that she was going to interview her. But the very last question they asked me at that meeting was, if there's some of the design work we want to do ourselves, is that okay? Like, if we wanna keep some of the rooms out of the square footage and do them ourselves, and that's not our ideal client.
Right.
And so, I walk them through sorta how that would look for us, and that was sort of a sticking point for us because then we get into things like scope creep, or does that overlap what we're designing or not designing? It
Yes.
is so hard.
And then
It's one of the hardest.
you're,
Yeah.
yeah, you're giving
Yep.
feedback because you're in there and they want your so
Yeah.
you're really are designing.
Exactly. And then sometimes if it it is something that we wouldn't do because we know about that product and we know the problems with it and we get involved in that, it just opens up sort of this can of
Yeah.
worms. And so from experience, we've just understood that that's something that is not for us. And so I sort of knew when they walked out, I was like, that is going to be the
That was the
sticking point because the designer they did hire I highly respect and love in our industry, and I knew that she was more flexible in that area, and
awesome.
so, it's okay, though, because the way the timing worked out, we wouldn't have been able to handle that job.
That is
But
what
we didn't
happens.
know that at
You
the
don't know
time.
that at the time.
Yeah,
You're so, like,
yeah,
oh, and then what comes next, you're going, "Oh my gosh,
yeah.
thank goodness that didn't."
Mhm. Yeah. What came next was that huge wedding venue that we're
Uh,
doing, and it's a
and that's just
combination
talk about
of
scope creep. That
the
thing's growing.
wedding ve it's just gotten huge. The wedding venue and luxury apartments and conference space, and, we are not really commercial designers, but this sort of has an overlap,
So
and, I'm the target audience, right? I'm the mom
yeah,
of
the bride
or of the
or
bo
whoever's, yeah, got
exactly.
3 of those.
Yeah, 3 daughters,
Mhm.
so I kinda know, and, it was something exciting and a way to stretch a little bit,
That's
so
so
made
awesome.
some
I
space.
love that.
Yep.
Yeah, because that can be,
So, how do you do your inspo?
so, the beauty and the beast of Pinterest, right? Everybody's familiar with it. Most people know how to use it. So people do have their Pinterest board. So I
Mhm,
request those or any
mhm.
tear sheets or anything that anybody has.
I was gonna say, have you had the stack of
And
magazine
to be honest, I am
photos?
such a
Yeah,
tactile. So
that works.
I rip out
Mhm.
constantly
Yep.
still. So that's where I like to go. Pinterest, I like, but I can go down too many rabbit holes on it.
Oh,
So I start with that. They send that in that kind of that first week, right? You have your
yeah.
great meeting, kickoff meeting, and all that's good, and then they get that first week to send all their inspo.
Mhm. And then
Um,
are you like, after that first week, no more inspo? Are you that
we're
person?
I can't quite get to that point yet,
Yeah.
although I want to so bad.
Mhm.
There have been times where I'm like, okay, that we're done, that has left the building. Like, that ship sailed.
Yeah.
Because it just keeps coming, and they keep looking, right? It's
and then they go off in a totally different direction.
Yes.
And you're like, so are we? Yeah.
Where are we now?
Yeah.
And I think, though, what I've learned this for myself is it's because I haven't been forthcoming with the process enough
to say, this is when we quit.
This is when we quit. And so I send out a Friday email every week to every client, whether any progress has happened or not.
That is part of our process as well.
That this is happening. So I think by doing that, it's almost alleviated those, like, did you see my new one or whatever? Because I've already captured, like, we're handling this right now. And, so
this is where we are.
I think that sort of, again, fell on me for not handling it probably properly. But I know some people who will just, like, say no more, stave it.
Well, in the Pinterest boards or whatever, I'll say you can add for the rest of your life, but after this date, I'm not going to be referring to it anymore, because I think sometimes they use Pinterest boards just to capture ideas, maybe for the farmhouse they're going to build, or I don't know,
right?
Or this is a piece of art I want to buy, or but I'll be like, I'm not looking at it
anymore. So with that, I am curious, because a year is a long time,
right?
So trends change, we change. At what point do you allow, like, a little bit of, I know we picked this already, Rainey, but I found this and I love it so much. Do you
later in the process? So we have done the contract, and now we're in inspo and lifestyle questionnaire. Later in the process, we get to what we call as the sign-off phase. And once you've signed off, I literally tell people it might as well be in blood, because it's immovable unless something is discontinued.
Okay.
And the reason I have to do that is because things are being ordered and they cost money. And then if they're returned and we can't get our money back, people are upset.
Yes.
And then also it can hold up the whole project.
Yes.
Right. And nobody wants to do that. That costs everybody time and money.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
And
no, I just wasn't sure if it hadn't been, because a lot of times we select so early.
Yes.
And then it doesn't get purchased if the builder is the one purchasing.
Right.
And then it does go to,
that's a whole podcast.
But so there's sometimes that wiggle room of time that it's been selected and everything's going with it, but then this thing gets found and you're like, do I put my line in the sand, or is it?
I think that depends on the client.
I guess so. And
how many other things that's going to
redesign the whole thing around it?
Bingo.
Which is a whole other question on that is, do you, when you're doing an inspo and all of that, and somebody's like, well, I want to keep these chairs and this table. We need a new rug light and side tables. Where do you stand on that? Are you good with?
I always say, okay, and then see what happens during the design process. And I'll ask a lot of times at a meeting, maybe the initial meeting, I'll say, or before the initial meeting, I'll say, do I have your permission to bring my best, even if you think we're going to reuse something? And I love reusing things. I mean, I love to.
Yeah.
But if I think it's not the right item as the design process sort of unfolds, do I have permission to bring something to you where you can decide to keep or replace that item?
That's a good one.
And so I can bring it to them. And sometimes they're like, absolutely not. Grandma Gertrude's cocktail table is staying.
Yep.
And I'm like, perfect. I love that. And we move on. But I've shown them that I think her cocktail table is too low and too small for that space, and we should consider it for somewhere else. But if that's where it's staying, it's their home.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's their home.
It's such that's a tricky one, because as designers, scale is is so important. Every element that goes in visually.
Yeah.
But what pulls at them is not that necessarily.
And that's
so we
okay.
Have to work to that. Yeah.
And that's okay. We have to let that go.
Yeah.
Do you have a lifestyle questionnaire that you do at the inspo phase where you kind of say, what does a Friday night look for you? If
that's kind
how
of
many heinies?
The intake form.
Okay, got it.
And so it's just asking how they entertain, but it comes up a lot more when they're in. And
got
then
it.
Because it's who's cooking? Are you cooking?
Yeah.
Is there catering?
How many gorgeous kitchens have you done for people that never cook?
That's the fun part, right? You're like, Okay.
I'm like, "So we're doing $100,000 worth of appliances in a kitchen and you don't cook." And you know what? That's okay
It's
too.
totally okay.
It's totally okay.
Yeah, you gotta heat stuff up somewhere and somebody,
Mhm,
and it's beautiful.
mhm.
But yeah, it happens. But the lifestyle is probably
Huge.
the most important part,
Yeah,
um, of it, right?
yeah,
Is how they really wanna live in their space
yeah.
and how they entertain. So what
I think you and I are similar in that way that we're function before form. It's like, how do you live? And then we can make anything beautiful.
Mhm.
I think there are designers that do focus on just the most edgy, the most spectacular, the most over the top. And there's definitely a place for that. There is zero judgment. But I think we're sort of moms with boots on the ground, sort of looking at how the home is going to be used
Yeah,
first.
how that's gonna fit for them growing. Like,
Mm,
I'm talking to a couple now that they're about to get some babies in the house and what
mm,
that gradual I'm like, "Okay, babies but they're 4 before you know it," and that drawer with their sippy cups because you don't wanna have to go up here, like, all of those just moments that you
mhm.
remember,
Huge.
are huge. But to your point of the designers that kind of say, "Yeah, function is out the window because this is beauty." Um, I love and admire that designer who can say that, and I've listened to them before
Yep.
because 'cause they're the ones who do the kitchens that have no uppers because everybody's gonna go down here for their glasses and anyway, they're like, "Yeah, I don't care where they put their glasses. I
And
don't
that,
wanna see a single cabinet." I'm like,
yeah.
"I have so much respect and
Yep.
admiration for you doing
Mhm.
that because
And that goes back to the Cinderella shoe, right? And which designer fits for you.
yeah.
Is it form before function or function before form? And that's a big question. And I think that probably gets you closer to a designer that's for you earlier.
That's a
Mm,
really good point
mhm.
because you might just that wow,
Yeah.
right? And how fun though. I would love a client who maybe is not so much function
Yeah.
because I can be function
Hmm.
too much, to the point where they're like, I want to,
Hmm.
I don't need to think about that. I'm like, do you? But you kind of do,
Right.
even just like what side your dishwasher's on if you're left-handed.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
house, somebody's going to buy our house and be so bummed because Maddie and I are left, and so it's over here, and they're going to be like,
I
well.
didn't know that your husband is left-handed.
He does some stuff left-handed, but,
So my
and
husband
his
too.
dishes are left-handed.
My husband writes left-handed,
Okay.
as well, so I didn't know that about
Yeah, but
you.
it's one of those tricky things when you go into
Mhm.
a kitchen that's been kinda designed to a person specifically.
I bet nobody's gonna notice when they go to look at your
They won't
house.
notice when they look, but they'll notice when they move in.
Yeah, they will,
That's
for
always that
sure. They're gonna
yeah.
go, "What?"
"What the hell?"
Maybe you could leave him a little note,
Yeah,
say, "Sorry,
sorry.
I'm a lefty."
We're lefties. We left enough room on the other cabinet, you can pull that thing out and move it. That
I
actually
love that.
wouldn't I
You
have
could
to
tell
think
them what
about
they could
that.
do.
That might not be the worst
"Here's
idea
your
just to
remodel plan."
yeah,
Yeah.
seriously, just check it
Mhm.
out anyway.
Unless they're lefties, I don't know.
Yeah, you might love it. This
So after contract and your inspo lifestyle, then we go into the design process. Do you just design the whole project and then have the client in to present? Do you do it in small little sections or doses?
so I will do so after everything's in, then we do the design concept meeting,
Yep.
which is all the rooms, just and I might be stealing, like, taking from a Pinterest thing,
Yep.
like the inspiration of what the room looks like from their board or whatever, and then kind of putting things to that
Yep.
and giving them options on all but every space that's in the
Yep.
scope or in the thing, and then from there, mark it up, dial it out, and get a really good thing. So then our next meeting, which is the
Big
big
presentation.
presentation
You know that you're
that we've got
close.
we'll have sign-offs and stuff. Yeah.
I love
And a
that.
lot of times at that concept one, we get 85% from that, which is always like, "Oh, thank
Yeah.
goodness."
Thank you, dear God.
Um,
Yes.
because that moment I think the tricky part of reselections are, and you tell me,
Mm.
is that momentum. Getting
Oh,
lost, and you are so excited about this whole palette, and then they're like, "This, I'm not sure about this." So
it affects
it
everything.
affects kind of everything, and
Yeah.
then you kinda lost your But
Mhm.
what about you guys? How do you? Because you have a full you guys, I feel like, hit it in
Y
a really
we
cool way.
we do, one of the things that I learned, and I learned it the hard way, so we had a young couple, he was an attorney, and she was taking her boards to be an endocrinologist, right? and they had just had sort of a surprise baby. And so they kind of were going in all these different directions. And I was like, I have to have your inspo. Like, I have to have your inspo. And they sent it to me, and we went through it as a firm, and we were like, totally understand exactly their design aesthetic. We're going to be able to nail this. We pulled all of the materials, put it all together, had this gorgeous presentation set up, and they came in, and there was a lot of blue. And one of the things that I learned about the client was, number one, they were so newly married that they really didn't know each other and their likes very well. And they really didn't love blue. And so I just sort of, when I realized this, I just sort of put on the brakes, and we put on the big screen. We went back to their inspo boards, and they were like, oh my gosh, we didn't notice that there was blue in all of those photos.
Which is
So they were looking at all these different elements, and we don't ask our clients to make notes on the photos, right? We just wanted to have fun throwing photos in a folder. But it really taught me to go through and have that meeting where you say, this is what we're seeing. Is this something you love? How do you, we've seen this kind of light fixture, this mid-mod light fixture in 75% of your photos. Is this something
what you're
you
liking,
love?
or are we missing what you're pulling this for?
And they're like, oh no, we hate mid-mod. And you go, oh, but all that information, and I call it funneling. So, if the top of the funnel is all the design decisions that you can make in the whole world, all of the tile selections on the planet,
right?
And you've got to get it down to this teeny tiny little, this tile, just beep. And that's what we're trying to do, right? So that meeting helps us get further down the funnel.
Yep. I love that, though, because I've got magazines that I've had, I mean, I'm embarrassed to say how long. 2003, whatever. Old. I love an old design magazine. And I still flip through, and I still see stuff that I didn't maybe see before, because I'm not looking for that. And so that's the thing. When they hand you all these things, and sometimes they're like, I don't even know what I liked here. I might have been drinking wine. I might take that on my board. Or I'm like, what did you like? They're like, I don't remember.
I have no idea.
I don't know, and it makes sense.
Or if they're sharing a board with their spouse, they might go, I have no idea why she put that on there or why he put that on there. And
so that's such an interesting thing, though, that again, just you add that into your process then. Like, okay, now we're going to make sure we
inspo review.
The inspo review, because, okay, so you do inspo review after. Okay.
Yep. And then we do the design and the presentation. That's always a fun meeting. And then we're going to have tweaks. I mean, I can count maybe 10 or 15 times in 25 years have we gotten 100% approval in that meeting. That isn't the goal. It's to get as far down that funnel as we can to that client's specific design aesthetic, right? And
I'm still locked in on the fact that you've had 20 to 25 that have done 100%, because it just... I feel like every project
10 to 15 in 25 years.
In 25 years, sorry. But that is impressive. I mean, because there's always that, like, you know what, we've decided, I love, that's amazing.
Well, anyway. That's a very, very small percentage of the project, right?
Impressive.
And a lot of times those are people who maybe home isn't the center of their lives, or they've got other homes and they only spend part of their time there and just want to be done with it. And then sometimes you just freaking nail it. And that feels like, I mean, it's just like my work here is done.
It feels so dang good. I don't know what's better, like the signing of the contract when you know that everybody's on the same page.
Right.
Or that design concept meeting when they leave after 2.5 hours. There's food everywhere. It's a mess. The table's destroyed, and it's beautiful.
Yep.
Because you're like, oh my God, I only have to put back a couple things.
Right.
Or no thing.
So I am really curious. Have you ever had a client in and they've gotten like 95% approval on design selections, and they go away for the weekend and you get a Monday morning email that actually they like almost nothing?
I will get it on Sunday, which is like, my favorite.
Yeah.
There's no work on Sunday. So yes, that has happened.
Yeah. How do you handle that?
A lot of deep breathing. But yeah, we, of course it's stipulated in contracts, like you get one round of revisions, but
I'm sure that's flexible depending on
Depending
the
on the client and
right?
the situation, but it is a curious, like, what changed over the weekend.
Mhm.
So it is a conversation of, oh my gosh, where did we miss and how, because again, it's coming on the heels of the inspiration that
Mhm.
they've shared in
Mhm.
in all of the conversation.
Yeah.
And so it feels a bit side swipey,
Yeah.
right?
And sometimes you find out, at least this has happened to me, that they had Aunt Sally over or their best friend was in from Virginia and just told them how much they disliked everything and that this is what the trends are now. And really take away that this is the design for that couple, not for the friend from Virginia or Aunt Sally. And so sometimes I've gotten those clients back in and we have that conversation and I help them gain sort of a trust in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Has that happened for
No,
you?
that's it. You
And
have
then
to
they're
kind
like,
of
"You know
go
what? I
back
do love
to,
this."
yes, like what they ultimately liked the first time and what
Right.
transpired over the weekend. And it's always, or those tennis girls coming back.
The tennis
Because, oh
girls.
my God, the amount of
Mhm.
tennis girls that have lunch.
Right.
So, but, and it again goes to that, how much do we kind of, it's their house,
Right.
it's their
It's your
money,
dream.
it's your dream.
Right.
But you shared this with, so where's that give and take? Because we kind of have seen it a time two before, right? So you're
Right.
like, I promise, just the moment, let's just keep going on the path, or do we
Yeah.
reverse and
Or if
completely
you
start
hate
this thing
something
over?
and you really don't love
Oh
this,
my gosh, if it's
like,
not,
that's the last thing you and I
yeah.
want, right?
But if it's just because you had some people chirping in somebody's house that's not even your style anyways,
Yeah.
then let's talk through that, because I
Right.
think that's
And sort of
important.
recenter. And then after the design process and the tweaking, and we get to where we love everything, it's put on design boards so they can see all the rooms at a snapshot. And it includes all of the drawings of all of the cabinetry and millwork and lighting and all of the things. Then we actually have sign-offs. Do you have a sign-off process?
No, and I am going to be putting this in, to be honest, because
I'm
they
going to tell you.
sign off on it. I mean, verbally.
Mhm. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you why I did it. So all of our processes, or a lot of our processes, came from hard lessons.
Yes, every process.
So this was years ago, and we were on site, and we walked on site for a cabinetry walkthrough. And this was a builder that was building, and a very able builder. Nothing to say about that. But the builder had, I think, revision set C. And revision set D was what the client, and I'll put this in quotes, signed off on.
Mm.
And we had sent that to the builder. That was in an email. It was all there. But it was lost between their office and the site, right? Honest mistake, that cost that builder a lot of time, effort, energy, and money, and the client some frustration. And so we decided that as everything is approved, our design boards, our spreadsheet, our selections that are put into spreadsheets, our drawings, everything goes into DocuSign.
Mm-hmm.
And then that becomes our final that goes in our DocuSign folder in our Dropbox. So that is it. That is where everything comes from. You don't pull from anywhere else, not an email, not something that was on your desk. It just comes from the Dropbox.
Which is brilliant for your in-house. I'm curious. In that
Mhm.
instance with
Mhm.
that builder,
Mhm.
does he have access to your Dropbox?
Yes. So we set up
Okay.
that Dropbox for the
Got
homeowner,
you. Okay.
the builder,
So if there's any
and
questions, he can
us.
always refer back to the Dropbox.
100%.
And you alert them like new
Mhm.
product or new stuff is in there. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
It
there's
automatically does alert them every time we place something in
okay.
there.
So that's, oh my
yep.
gosh. See?
It's
I
only
just
for
learned
that.
something. That's
Well,
fantastic.
and it's not like this is genius on us. I'm telling you, we learned it because of the problem, and this was the solution for us. I am sure there are other designers that do things other genius ways. It just happens to work for us.
No, but that's I like that way for everybody, that it's up somewhere that everybody can access it. That's what I guess is so special, because had a, great selection meeting a couple years back, wallpaper in, I as much as I possibly can, every single thing is there tangible for them to see, smell,
touch, smell.
touch.
I always say that. See, tell, sell. So yeah.
So all of that is there, and the wallpaper was there. But the boards that we printed, colors change, pixelated, whatever, the color on the printer.
Can't trust it.
Can't trust it. But clients saw the wallpaper, loved it, went home with the boards, loved them. Wallpaper went in. She's like, this is not the same wallpaper. I'm like, and I'm beside myself. I'm so excited. It's the prettiest wallpaper. It's so
your whole
different.
life.
And it's just like, I cannot wait for her to see it. She's going to be just falling over. She does not like it. It is not the color of this. I'm like, well, no, that's a pixelated. If you go back to
she pulled out the
PDF,
printed out the
printed
design
out. I'm like,
board.
it's on the PDF. Like, if it's been sent to you, that's actually the link. And you saw it in the place. And she's like, I don't remember seeing it, but it wasn't this color. No,
so what was the resolution to that one?
I bought wallpaper for her.
Lovely wallpaper that looked like the design
board. Redo it again. And so again, just moments where people, there's so much to take in. And that was the thing. I'm like, that's on me.
Yeah.
I didn't have her personally sign off on touching that wallpaper was there. My documentation must not have been on.
Have you ever had like hard, so on stains, when we do stains, we actually order in the species of wood and actually stain that piece of wood and have the client sign off on the back of that.
That's a good one with the sign.
Do you do that?
We always stain the species, but the sign off is good.
Yeah. So, because we had that same thing. It was, this isn't the one, we wanted the darker one. We've just learned those things. And it's not for I gotchas. We actually, again, want to protect the dream.
Yes.
And,
absolutely.
And for everyone to win.
And we forget sometimes. I mean, we've got
100%
client folders or buckets that I need to go through. And I'm like, oh gosh, I need to clean this out. That was the last iteration. So there's that constant for us to be keeping it going. So as much for them as, it is so we don't mess
Or
up.
we love that leathered absolute black granite and we've pulled it out for every client because it fits somewhere, usually an outdoor kitchen. And then it's not in that client's bucket anymore. And what was in just constantly making sure the checks and balances of all of the things. And then there was this time that we had a client in, fantastic specification meeting. It was a Friday afternoon, so we left the napkins, the half-drank drinks, all the things on the table. And we got here on Monday morning, and the intern had come in extra early and dutifully put everything back in the library, as she should have, except that we had not captured all of the materials. And so we, after taking, like you said, that deep cleansing breath, we got everything back out and remembered the best we could, and then had the client back in, and it was like, mea culpa, here's what happened. And of course, they were delightful and understanding, but those things happen. We are human.
We are human. And that is just, again, though, doesn't matter what processes or how many things fall through. They just do. But like it's not rocket science that we're doing. Somebody said, but I'm
detailed.
Not a brain I'm not a brain surgeon or curing cancer, but I'm building houses for people who are. So let's just create the best environment for those people who have the brains that can. And then I'll just stay in my lane and try and make sure that I because that has happened and it's painful.
It is.
And normally I'm really good at least documenting photos so that the fronts, backs, all of that. But there's times those meetings go so long and it's Friday and you're done. And
we do those things now too.
But
when I say we, I mean Connor. Yeah. Connor does those things too.
We haven't even preached on Connor recently.
God love Connor.
We all need a Connor. Okay. And so.
Exactly. Then we go to implementation, which we take all of this design process, all of the things we've done, and we communicate it in very planned ways to builders, contractors, our vendors for ordering purposes, and we're off to the races. Is that sort of the final step for you?
Yeah, it is. It's which is interesting. So the vendor part, I have a question about that. Do you go to them prior to the selections? Because I'm sure sometimes, I know you go and poll, and then you probably ultimately, at least for we, in the meeting, they're like, is there anything, or, I like that one on the wall. Because I refuse to use a tile for for two clients. I won't use, but if the client has spotted it and they love it, then it's like, okay, I'll do that, but I'm not going to show you something that's in somebody else's house
Right.
ever. But so then you pull, and then, but the pricing part. So
Mhm.
sometimes, are you gathering pricing and stuff prior to your selections, or
No.
you know where you're going with it, and
No.
then you,
We kinda know.
yeah,
I mean, the vendors, you kinda know what their sweet
yeah,
spot is, whether it's, uh, sort of a medium high, or high. You just sort of know that instinctively. There have been times when we've gone to the pricing stage and we're like, "Okay." We were targeting $12 a square foot. This is actually 18. This is about how many square feet you would need, times the $6 overage. This is gonna cost you about $600, $700
right,
extra. Are you okay with that, or do we need to reselect? But if we just focused on pricing at the selection stage, that's all we would do.
right,
You'd never move forward. You just wouldn't.
yeah,
And we don't mind reselecting, not a problem.
right.
But
Oh, that's good. Okay, because I don't love having I bringing stuff that because if they fall for something and you're like,
Mhm.
oh shit, this one's 120 a foot,
Oh,
which
yeah,
happens,
no,
right? I've
that's
done that on a couple. But again,
Mhm.
this store.
Mhm. There's a very specific vendor that I'm not gonna say out loud that has happened before,
Yes, and
and
you
I
don't
steer
expect it.
very
Yeah,
clear of them unless I know this is
this is what you can do.
a
Yep.
high-end
Yeah.
client.
So,
Yeah,
but otherwise, we all have the
yeah.
par-
Barometers.
barometers,
Yeah,
parameters.
parameters,
Yeah,
both of
but
those
then
things.
going to them and getting the pricing. Yeah. So with that, so you get all your pricing, and then do you end up turning it over to the builder, or do you do the purchasing in
So,
house?
if there's a builder involved, then we turn it all over to them, and they do the purchasing. If it's a remodel, since we do the actual remodeling, we do all the purchasing, and that's sort of one of our things. We will not start a remodel until every single material is in-house, because I'm not tearing out your house and getting halfway done and not having a
Realizing something's
material.
back ordered, or
Yeah,
not coming,
not
or whatever,
happening.
not happening. I
Mm-mm.
think that was a big lesson learned during COVID, for
Ugh,
sure. There were definitely times the
I hate that
contractor
C
would.
word.
I know, it is the C word. We should
Mhm.
start referring to it. That thing back then in March of 2000.
Yep.
But yeah, it's
Was it no,
tricky.
2020.
2020,
Yeah.
2020.
Yep.
Oh my God, 2000. That was
That was
so
a long time
Y2K.
ago. Too long
Y2K.
ago.
That was a long
Yep.
time ago.
But we did
Okay.
learn about supply chain,
For sure, and
and
it
it was
really
brutal.
tightened some stuff up, though. It made it to
Yep.
where these processes, like everything, it's because you fall short in somewhere and you're like, "Okay, I need a process for that.
Yep.
It needs to be
It needs to
documented."
get
Yeah.
better.
Oh, I'm so
Exactly.
glad I'm happy to hear some of your stuff too, because I might have to start implementing the
Me
drop box
too.
for sure.
Me
That's
too.
huge.
I love hearing how you do things, and I think it makes all of us better, because we're all doing the best we can with what we got, and we can always get better.
And that's the
Mhm.
thing about our business.
Yep.
There are a million different ways to do this. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's why there's so many of us and so many clients, enough for all of us, right?
Yep.
Um,
So about the something we've noticed, we sort of met and had sort of brunch this last weekend, and we were talking about noticing how things are a little weird during this new year, and you said something that you've noticed, and
Well,
so
people just, it doesn't seem like a resolution year.
mm,
It's not a new year, new me, new you,
mm,
which I've really enjoyed we just sort of
slid
it's
in.
just like a little ripple.
Mm,
Nobody came out guns a-blazing for this 2025.
mhm,
Um, and I think it just shows we're all kind of fatigued by some stuff.
mhm,
And we're really probably finding ways to be like okay with where we're at, or at
mhm.
best, just, not calling attention to some of the mishaps
Some of the
or
things,
stuff.
some of the
The gyms aren't
things.
busy. I mean, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
you said your gym was
Um,
not crazy busy like it usually is, and
no, and
even for myself, I mean, I definitely have some intentions in mind, but I usually sit down and do this whole thing,
yeah, I
have
was
a
waiting for
word
the
of the
texts from you. Like, I
year
can't wait to
and
tell
the
what my word
whole
is.
thing, and I think I know what my word is gonna be this year, but, we're halfway through January, and I'm just now sort of contemplating that for real,
Yeah.
so really sort of strange. Do you think that's some fatigue from the election and
Think it's fatigue,
just
just
all the
fatigue.
things?
It is, and
war abroad, just fatigue.
It's just fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
And, to speak of another podcast, but somebody spoke recently, and it really resonated. Brené Brown was talking to Oprah, two of the most...
Brené Brown and Oprah, who are they?
There's these... Okay, so
there's these two ladies.
One of them was on a talk show a while back, and then the other one's like an educator at UH.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
no,
biggest
really.
women of the
I
entire
cannot.
universe.
Idols.
Idols. But Brené Brown spoke to the fact that, because they were talking about where we're at and stuff, and that it's an older... It doesn't matter. But she said she thinks after 9/11, like, people just didn't really recapture, like, the kindness back after. Like, fear was just so instilled in us at that time that maybe we didn't all go past it. And so even though we got stuff in place for it, Homeland Security and everything that goes with that, there's just fear in people. And now we're living in a place where it is a bit,
which really makes me think about,
it's like, oh my gosh, we're just tired of being tired of
being
scared
tired
and tired of not getting along and tired. So I think it's just people are maybe finally like, I keep wanting to tap out and say uncle, like with my stupid little leg injury, and like if there was a way to tap out, I think that's what people are doing. Uncle, let's just move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that all of this has made me realize is, again, it's the reframing of the importance of home and it sort of becoming that cocoon, that safe space, that place where we go to not be afraid. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've seen the reemergence of the home becoming so important again. And what makes what we do super exciting. And that one place in the world that's the sanctuary, right?
Yes.
And
so yeah, absolutely, the sanctuary for the home. And I mean, friend of mine is, because we're still in it with people and friends in LA that are still without, and it's never been more clear. And actually, it's very interesting that kind of started right after the new year, and maybe people have sort of just stopped and gone, really? Does my 5 pounds make a big fat difference? No.
No.
I want a place to sleep with my kids, safe for my dogs. So
the reframing
that is a reframing
of
all of it. And so I look forward to seeing how people do reframe their year, because I think that is happening for people internally more than externally, maybe, which is beautiful.
Yep. And so I'm wondering what it is in your life that you would like to reframe. Is there something that you need to rethink in your own personal life that you need to see in a different light to move your life forward? And if so, I would love for you to reach out and email us or anything else you'd like to chat about on hello@reframingdesign.com.
And you can follow me on Instagram at Cassandra_brand_interiors.
Or me at Rainey Richardson Interiors on Instagram, or both of us at
Reframing Design on Instagram.
Yep.
And don't forget to like, review, follow, share, and listen on any platform that this is coming through, on YouTube or Apple or wherever you get your podcast.
Yes. And don't forget to tell your friends and family about us. And thank you for joining us today. It has been a great podcast, and I love you. And
it's been beautiful.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, mahalo.